My name is Benjamin Hans. I'm from FixU. And I'm here today to talk about an issue that affects all of us, which is user decay. Just one of those facts of the industry that we're in and what we have to deal with. It seems to be a theme for this afternoon as well. It's been touched on before, but we're going to put some data around it. For those of you who don't know, FixU is a technology company. And what we do is we help app developers reach the audience that they want to get in touch with throughout the mobile ecosystem. And we do this at scale. This is I think our third year here, and we've been building our tools over the last 4.5 years in order to help us do this. And the idea is, it's not just about acquiring users, it's about finding those users that are most valuable to you, the right audience, the right place at the right time, and then doing this at scale. It's one thing if you get 100 organics, and that's great, those are really valuable users, but to do this at scale, you're gonna have to pay some money for it. But then once you paid money to getting these users into your app, you have this problem of user decay. So how do you stop that? So FixU is a platform that helps you do this across the mobile ecosystem. Next slide, please. Thanks. Some of our clients, just to let you know, we have been around for quite some time. 40 out of the 50 top grossing apps are our clients. We've generated close to 5 billion downloads. More importantly, we have a huge store of data. We have over 2.6 billion profiles on individual devices. And if you look at that, that's over 80% of all handheld devices ever shipped. So FixU has profiles on that. More importantly, backing up those 2.6 billion profiles is over 12 trillion marketing events that occur inside these apps. As we all know, mobile apps take about 86% of people's times on their phone. The other 14% is on mobile web. So apps are clearly the place where you kind of want to focus your attention. And I mentioned this not just to brag about FixU, but also to let you know that we're speaking from a position of experience. So about the crux of what we're talking about, user decay, did you know that over half of apps lose their peak users within 3 months? This is a little shocking if you think about it. It happens to everybody, but the category most affected by it is games. Games lose over half of their peak users within 2 months. Now by peak users, just to be clear, we're talking about users that are, we call them paying users, or if you're a social app and you want people spreading the word and connecting with friends, those would be your peak users. So it's not all users, it's your peak users. So those people that you really want, 50% are leaving your app within 3 months on average. Each category is slightly different. Like I said, in games, it's a bit more accelerated. So at FixU, we decided to go one step further, use all the data that we have, and look into this story a bit further. I think the category that's least affected by this, it's two of them. It's news category and the fitness category. Their half-life is more around 6 months. But still, 6 months, if you think about it, you do your job, you blood, sweat, and tears and all that stuff, and after 6 months, you've lost more than half of what you worked for. It's quite shocking. So we looked at all the data that we had, and we decided to pick 5 apps in the games category, because games is somewhat of a leading indicator, not only about where the industry is going, but how the technology is developing and how users are adapting to it. So we took 5 apps. In the categories here, we had 2 in the casual game category and 1 in each of the others. Each of these apps have been around for over 3 years, and each individually had generated 20 million installs. So you can see, again, we're talking with some good data, so we have enough to talk about statistically relevant things. And what we wanted to look at wasn't just about your peak users. We thought we'd go a bit closer to the beginning, closer to the source, and look at all downloads, look at all users that you get. Because if you can take your average user and turn them into a peak user, you're doing even better than just retaining your peak users, right? And the way we defined a user, or a loyal user, is someone who goes back to the app 3 times or more. It's just something that's statistically significant. The first time could just be finger slip. The second time, the first time is just the install. The second time could just be finger slip. But the third time you interact with an app, you have a conscious intent to engage with the app. So looking at these 5 different games, these 5 different apps, we wanted to see what their decay pattern was for all their users. And looking at it, one thing stood out from the very beginning. If you look at this graph, it affects the same across the board. We've worked with many different app developers, and everyone says the same thing. You know, we're different. We're a hardcore game. We're a mid-core game. We're a casual game. hardcore games are really hard to market and to monetize, and the casual games is just way too much competition. Everyone has their own problems. They're all unique, but at the same time, this shows us that we're all in the same boat. The decay pattern is the same regardless of category. More interesting is you looked at your engaged users, not just your peak users, but your engaged users. We say in the first month, everyone's there, so 100% of your audience is paying attention. After 1 month, though, you're down to 43%. So that's a bit kind of makes you catch your breath, because you know how much you spend on your budget. And you kind of feel like more than half of that's just kind of disappeared. That's somewhat sobering. After 5 months, you got just over 10% of all the engaged users you have are still involved with your app. So again, it doesn't make you feel too good. But that comes up with the question, what can I do to stop this? One of the analogies, I think it was mentioned earlier today as well, is the leaky bucket. How can you plug the holes in this bucket to actually keep people around a bit longer? Not only keep them around, but then actually turn them into the users that you want. So we're not just looking at your peak users, we're looking at all users and turning them into your peak users. What can you do? The answer is twofold. You can do two things. One is you can do cross-device targeting to generate kind of new users, but it's kind of your same user base, but focusing them on mobile. And the second is to re-engage the lapsed users. And you do this, again, the technology has been developed over the last year or so to actually allow you to get in touch with those people that you've already paid to get to come to your app. So with those two tricks, you're able to help stop, or like I said, plug the holes of the leaky bucket. Talking about cross-device targeting first, for those companies out there that aren't a mobile-first company but started on the desktop, we've noticed, again, about 2 years ago, there was a huge shift. Everyone kind of cottoned on to the fact that users are more engaged, they're more just more energetic and monetize better on mobile devices. So the idea is if you can get your users off the desktop and onto the mobile devices, the ones that they carry around with them every day, it generally works into your favor. So what we do is when a customer visits your website, we have a pixel there, we gather some anonymous data about them. And then what we do is we use the technology we've developed and listen in the mobile ecosystem for whenever they pop up on their phone. So we know it's the same person, we just know it's instead of the desktop, they're now on their mobile device. So with that, we then push them a tailored message to tell them, hey, don't forget, I know you love this company, I know you love the website, but they have an app. You can take this with you wherever you go. And we found that to be very effective. The second thing you can do, and this is actually more important, this is taking all users and trying to turn them into your engaged users, your peak users. And what you can do is you can actually retarget those users that have already seen your app, that are already familiar with your app, and you can get them to come back in different ways. You cut them up into different cohorts and have a specific message for each. An example of that would be you have a game, and your game, let's say, was 25 levels. You have a lot of users. You look at the cohorts that you have. You have those users. First off, if you have two types of monetization models, you have in-app advertising and you have in-app purchases. You can cut the cohorts into two right there. You can say those people that have never made a purchase, but they like the app and they completed the game, all 25 levels, and those that did make an in-app purchase and also have completed the two different levels. So right there, you can re-engage those users by saying, listen, we've developed 5 new levels. I know you loved the game before, so come back and play the game again. The other thing you can do is you can promote new features. For those users that did do some sort of in-app purchase, you can talk about new in-app either upgrades you can do or something like that. The idea is you take the audience that you have, segment them, and then tailor a message for each. And the technology is very similar to what we mentioned before with the cross-device targeting. You have the identifier, either the Android ID or the IDFA, and FixU's technology will listen across the mobile ecosystem, and when we see that person pop up somewhere else on another app, or even on a mobile website, we can deliver this message to them and get them to come back. You can also drive additional in-app purchases. I think it was mentioned before today as well about deep linking. You're able to actually have the target link in the ad that you're specifically driving to these people go right to the in-app purchase part of the app, so to a specific area. And that, again, is a technology that's only been developed recently with the deep linking. That is extremely powerful. Not only can you, if you're not a game and let's say you're an app where you can make real life purchases that get delivered to your house and something's stuck in the basket, they put something in their basket but they never actually paid for it. You can find all those people. You get that list of IDFAs. You give it to someone like FixU. We listen for them in the mobile ecosystem. When we see them, we throw them this ad saying, don't forget, you got a full basket, the stuff that you wanted to buy. And when they click on the ad, it goes right to the basket, so they're already halfway into the process. They don't have to go through the whole thing again. Again, we found this to be extremely effective. So where can you do this? It's not everywhere in the mobile ecosystem that the technology is available to be exploited. The main areas to do this is Facebook, Twitter, Google, any real-time bidding platform, and the incentivized network called Free My Apps. So all these networks have the capability to take your list of IDFA, or to allow FixU to listen for these IDFAs, and when we see them, to push that message to them. As the industry grows, it's going to become more sophisticated as well. I can list 5 other networks that are currently working on this kind of capability, so you can do retargeting. We got 3 that we're working with in either closed betas or open betas in getting this technology rolled out. So what we'll see is, it was mentioned before, I think Ross from Twitter talked about the virtuous cycle of you have to do the paid acquisition, the paid engagement, and that drives organics, which drives more paid and so forth and so on. You'll be able to do this over many different sources in the mobile ecosystem, and not just this list right now. Facebook and Twitter were at the beginning of it. RTB as well was quickly following. So more and more will come on as time goes on. And the message is, again, going back to that virtuous cycle, don't stop what you're doing. A lot of people get very excited about user acquisition. 2 things. One is they say, oh, I don't want to pay for the same users I already paid for. Don't worry, it's actually much more cost effective. And the second is, well, I really want to get in touch with everyone that's seen my app before, so let's throw all my budget at it. Unfortunately, you can't do that because the way it works is it's a statistical model. So let's say you have $100,000 a month to spend. You can't say, I want to spend $100,000 on retargeting and just do that. One, that's not really the most effective thing to do. Secondly, you have to wait for these people to actually be seen on the mobile ecosystem. So if you only have 2 million installs that you've generated over the last 3 or 4 months, you're not going to get that much traffic. And again, the idea is if you do re-engagement as part of an overall strategy, your ultimate campaign is just much more robust. So it works best in complement with what you're currently doing. As a guideline, this is just kind of a thumbsuck, kind of back of the envelope calculation. Retargeting re-engagement would take about 20% of your overall budget. So again, if you have $100,000 to spend a month, you're probably only going to be able to traffic about $20,000 of that into re-engagement or retargeting. So the idea, again, it's something a bit more robust to kind of maintain what you're currently doing and support that as well. So we have 2 case studies here, and the first one is from an e-reader. One of the most important things is FixU, we've been around for about 4.5 years. We've had thousands of clients, and there's always, you can always tell when you have someone who's got it. And the way they have it is when they know their business and they know what their LTV measures are. So they know how much each user is worth to them. If they're really clever, they know how much each user per each source is worth to them. So you have different bids on different networks, etc. So it's considered a magic number. If you know the magic numbers for your app, whatever it is, if it's a social app that you have to register with emails and people put in more than 2 emails, then that's a good leading indicator that this will be a great user. For this e-reader, they realize that people who come back to their app within 7 days after their last visit are really the type of users that they want. They're the ones that are consuming the most content, that are sharing the content. And sharing the content is how you get virality. So what they did, our job as marketers is to communicate to the marketplace. We communicate to the marketplace in order to influence behavior. So what they decided to do was to do a re-engagement campaign to influence the behavior of all their users to look like their peak users. What they did was they took the cohorts of all the users that they got, let's say within a given week, and for those users who didn't come back within, say, 7 days, they hit them with a message saying, don't forget about this new articles, whatever it was, to entice them back into the app. So what they're doing there is they're influencing the behavior of all these users to look like their peak users, right? To look like the users they want. And it turned out to be extremely, extremely effective. Again, the earmark here on the budget was about 15%, but the performance itself was actually incredible. It was about 30% increase on the total. The second case is actually straightforward, and this goes back to just encouraging the behavior that you want. And this was a poker app, and they just wanted to get their users that had purchased to purchase more. So they took all the users that they had, they cut up the cohorts, and those that did purchases, they delivered specific messages to them, which encouraged them to buy more. And at the end of the day, what you saw was 110% increase in in-app purchases and a 75% lower cost of acquisition. So you can see here, again, with the job that we're supposed to do as marketers to influence behavior, there's a way that you can actually stop the leaks in the leaky bucket to not only retain your peak users, but to turn your average user into your peak type of user, your ideal user. So again, you should keep doing what you're doing with the paid user acquisition, but don't forget to layer some re-engagement and some retargeting in there to make it more robust. That's pretty much all I have for today. I'll be around for the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes, so feel free to stop and we'll chat from there. Thanks very much.